If you've ever felt like American politics is just one big, constant battle, well, you're not wrong. But what if I told you the fight isn't just between Democrats and Republicans? It's actually a much deeper tug-of-war between three competing ideas about what democracy even is. And these ideas have been duking it out since the very beginning, shaping pretty much every political debate we have today.
You know, for the founders, this wasn't some academic exercise. This was the central question that shaped every single word of the Constitution. It's like the ultimate political tightrope walk. How do you hand power over to the people without the whole thing just imploding?
So the real challenge, when you get right down to it, was this. They needed to build a government strong enough to actually do stuff, defend the country, manage the economy, but at the same time, not make it so powerful that it would just crush the individual rights it was supposed to be protecting. A real balancing act.
And their solution? Well, it wasn't one simple answer. It was a mashup of three totally different ideas about who should really be in charge. And that's where we get our three models: participatory, pluralist, and elite democracy. Now, don't think of these as some dusty old concepts from a history book. They are live, active forces constantly pulling our government in different directions, even as we speak. All right, so let's jump into the first one. This is the model that argues for the most direct, hands-on, power-to-the-people kind of democracy you can imagine. We're talking about participatory democracy. So what is it exactly? Well, to put it simply, it's the idea that everyone should have a direct say in the decisions that affect their lives. No middlemen, no representatives, just you and your vote. It's democracy in its purest, most unfiltered form. The classic example is a small town hall meeting, where every single citizen can stand up, speak their mind, and cast a vote.
But as you can see, there's a huge trade-off here. On the one hand, this is the most authentic version of rule by the people you can get. It's fantastic in theory. But on the other hand, seriously, how do you get 330 million people to all weigh in on something as complicated as banking regulations or foreign policy? For a country this big, it's just a logistical nightmare.
But that's not to say it doesn't exist. You actually see this model in action all the time, especially at the state and local levels. Think about ballot initiatives. That's where citizens can totally bypass their elected officials and vote directly on specific laws themselves. Everything from gun background checks in Nevada to rules about bear hunting in Maine. Okay, so if getting every single person to vote on every single issue is just too hard, what's another way to do it? Well, that brings us to our second model, pluralism. This one sees democracy a little differently. Not as millions of individual voters, but as a big, constant competition between organized groups. The basic idea here is that politics is kind of like a marketplace of ideas. Instead of you voting directly on a law, you join a group that shares your interests, say an environmental group or a business association, and those groups then battle it out, lobbying, campaigning, and trying to influence government policy on your behalf.
And this quote really nails the core concept. It's all about competition and, hopefully, compromise. The thinking is that if you have all these different groups fighting for their interests, no single one can just dominate everything. It forces debate and, in a perfect world, leads to some kind of middle ground.
So the pro is that you get a ton of different voices in the mix, which is great for preventing any one group from getting way too powerful. The con, though, and this is a big one, as anyone who's watched the news for 5 minutes can tell you, is that it can lead to total gridlock. Just nothing gets done because nobody can agree.
And you see this model in action literally every day. We're talking about interest groups, organizations representing super specific causes, from the NRA fighting for gun rights to the National Organization for Women advocating for women's rights, all the way to environmental groups. These guys are absolutely central to how laws and policies actually get made, both in Washington, D.C. and in state capitals all over the country.
All right, on to our third and final model. And this one, well, it takes a very different approach. And honestly, for a lot of people, it's the most controversial. We're talking about elite democracy.
The argument for elite democracy goes something like this. Running a country is really, really complicated. So maybe those big, tough decisions shouldn't be left to the general public or a bunch of squabbling interest groups. Maybe they're best left to a small, select group of people, the ones who are highly informed, well-educated, and, let's be honest, usually wealthy, who can see the big picture.
Now, the appeal here is clear. It's efficient. You can get things done quickly when you don't have to consult millions of people. But it raises some huge fundamental questions, right? Is it really a democracy if only a tiny group of people are calling the shots?
And can we ever be sure that those elites are looking out for everybody and not just themselves?
And if you're looking for the clearest, most prominent example of this model in action, look no further than the Electoral College. Seriously, this system wasn't some kind of accident. It was designed on purpose to be a check on the popular vote, a kind of safety net in case the founders worried the voters might make an unwise decision for president.
And this is not just some abstract theory. Just look at the 2000 presidential election. Al Gore got almost 500,000 more votes from individual Americans across the country, but George W. Bush won the presidency. Why? Because he won the Electoral College. This is a perfect, real-world example of how this elite-style system can completely override the will of the majority of voters.
So, okay, we've got three models. Power to the people, power to the groups, and power to the few. So which one is the real American system? The answer is kinda all of them. The U.S. is a blend of all three. And this tension, this constant push and pull between these ideals, it's not new. It goes all the way back to the country's founding.
You can see this conflict perfectly in the original debates between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. The Federalists, like James Madison, argued in papers like Federalist No. 10 for a strong central government, something closer to a pluralist or elite model, to control all the competing factions. But the Anti-Federalists, in writings like Brutus No. 1, warned that a huge central government would crush liberty and couldn't possibly represent everyone. They were arguing for a much more participatory, local style of democracy. So the most important thing to take away from all this is that the U.S. isn't just one of these things. It's a hybrid. It's a big, messy blend of all three. You've got participatory democracy happening in local town halls. You've got pluralist democracy with all the lobbyists battling it out in Congress. And you've got elite democracy with things like the Electoral College and the Supreme Court. It's this dynamic, constantly shifting balance of power.
And that's our explainer. So next time you're watching the news or scrolling through your feed, try to see these different forces at play. And ask yourself this question. Right now, in America today, which of these models seems to have the upper hand? Is it the people? Is it the organized groups? Or is it the elites? The more you look, the more you'll see that the answer is anything but simple.
Mm-hmm.